In today's video, we're going to use the 8-point grid to create this app design that you guys see here for a live streaming app. That's today's Adobe XD tutorial. Let's go ahead and get started. To get our document set up, I'm using a iPhone XR XS Max or 11 artboard. That's 414 points wide by 896 high. I'm also going to be going down here to the grid with the artboard selected, and we're going to go to a square grid, and you'll see that we already have an 8-point grid. If you don't have that, go ahead and set that to 8 points. So this is going to be our guidelines for our app. Before we start adding any elements onto the screen, I just want to let you guys know that today's video is sponsored by Milanote. Milanote is a bit different than traditional software. It's more like working on a wall in a creative studio. It allows you to map out your projects, gather and organize all of your inspiration in one convenient place, and it also allows you to collaborate with your colleagues or clients in real time. As a full stack designer, it's an essential part of my workflow, and this awesome tool is free, so check out the link at the top of the description. All right, so to get started here, let's go ahead and drag out a guideline that's 24 points from each side of the artboard. And we're doing this instead of just using the grid because the 8-point grid is not going to work perfectly on this device. It's 414 wide, which is not divisible by 8. So therefore, we have to make sure that both of our sides are equal by adding these guidelines. So if I zoom in here, you'll notice that this right-hand guideline that's 24 from this edge is slightly off of our grid. So that's why we have that there, so we can snap to that instead of snapping here and being 23 from the edge. The thing I want to do is work on our navigation. And I'm actually going to lay out this with a rectangle. That way we can work on the vertical positioning on this grid. So I'm going to drag out a rectangle from one guideline to the next. And for now, the size doesn't really matter. We're going to make sure this is 48 points from the top of the artboard. So everything that we're going to be working with as far as the vertical spacing and mostly the horizontal spacing as well is going to snap onto this grid. So you can see that we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells down on our grid for 48. Now let's go ahead and drag this up until it looks like it's a good size, around 64, again snapping it on our grid. Then we're going to have two icons, one on the left and one on the right. So let's create a square that is going to house these icons. And so that looks pretty good, snapping it at 32 by 32. And we're actually going to put this right on this guideline. And let's go ahead and drag this full width just because we're going to hide this later anyway, like so. Then we can hold Alt and click and drag, or Option on the Mac, and just drag it over here to this right-hand guideline. So we have 24 spacing on each left and right of our placeholders. So that's going to hold our navigation icons. Moving down, we're going to have a heading. So I'm actually going to work with text here instead of just rectangles. So I'm just going to grab the type tool, type in some junk text for now. And today, let's use one of my favorites, Proxima Nova. And for this heading, we'll go with a 26 size font. And we'll bump that up to, let's go with a bold weight. And for the line height, let's make it 48 so that it snaps to our grid. Now let's place this 24 below this rectangle for our navigation and on the left-hand side of our guideline. I'm going to go ahead and put trending in there just because I know this is going to be our trending section for our live stream app. We're going to have some cards for the trending profiles, so let's go ahead and drag out some rectangles. And we're going to size these to 144 wide by 176 on the height. For the spacing below our headings, let's go with 16 throughout our design, and we're going to make sure that's on the left-hand side guideline. Holding Alt to click and drag to create a duplicate, we're going to go ahead and match the spacing that we did under the heading as 16, and we'll put 2 cells of spacing here, so 2 grid squares there at 16, and we'll do that one more time. So we have 3 cards. We'll add the details to the cards in just a moment. Let's go ahead and work on the rest of our layout. I'm going to hold Option or Alt and drag down our navigation rectangle. And since we're going from one section, the trending section, to another, we're going to put a little bit more than 16 this time, something like maybe 24, just to give it a little bit more space so we have some groups being made by our spacing. And we're going to drag this to the guideline on each side and maybe scale it down in the height to 56. So I'm thinking this is going to be some kind of notifications where we can swipe over, and maybe it's got a button here on the right for viewing the live stream. It's going to say so-and-so just went live, and we'll click view or something like that here. Next, we're going to another section. So I'm going to grab the trending heading and hold Option or Alt to drag down a duplicate. And again, we're going to go with that 24 spacing in between our notifications and this new section. And I'll call this one Live Channels. Next up, we're going to have the videos for the live feed for the user to just scroll through them. So these are going to be videos, so they need to be in a similar aspect ratio to something like 1920 by 1080. So we need to make sure we're keeping that similar aspect ratio here. So I'm just going to drag out a rectangle that looks like a similar size. Maybe we make it a little bit taller. I'm going to go with 200. And we're going to go with 16 spacing below our heading, keeping everything nice and consistent. Then we'll hold Alt and drag out another one and put 16 in between both of those. So that's the basic layout of our app. So let's double click here and call this wireframe. And let's go ahead and add a bit more detail. So we're going to add the icons in. So I'm just going to go ahead and load up Nucleo here. And let's go with a box icons menu. User profile. Drag and drop those in, and then we'll center them inside of each one of these grid squares. Just selecting it, holding Shift and grabbing both the rectangle in itself and making sure they're vertically and horizontally centered. All right, then I'm going to hold Option or Alt and drag out a duplicate of this square. Command Shift, right square bracket key to bring that all the way to the front, or you can just do that manually here in your layers panel just by dragging that up top. So for this, we're going to have a user profile icon on each one of these cards. So I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. So let's go 40 by 40 and 24 on the top and the left for the spacing. And with these, I want to do a little bit of asymmetry. So we have 24 on the left, but I don't want that here on the right. I want it to be probably a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. So some kind of asymmetry here. So let's go ahead and add some text. So I'm going to grab trending, holding Option, and then let's take this and just bring it down to a regular weight. This is going to be our view counter, or maybe follower counter. Also with Nucleo, let's grab a group icon for the followers. So we'll just drag that in, and we're not going to worry about having a box around this. We're just going to align this with this text. So we'll vertically center that, and let's put 8 spacing in between each one of these. So this is 24 from the left, and then this is 8 to the right of that. Then we'll copy this text, and I'm just going to put my name in for now. We'll change these to different names later. And then let's bump this down to 14. And then to keep this snapping perfectly to the grid cells, we'll do 24 for the line height. And we're going to align that 24 from the bottom of the card and 24 from the left-hand side. And then we're going to take our follower number and make sure that is 8. So right here, we're breaking our grid just a little bit. That's okay. So we're making sure that's 8 above, and then we need to make sure this is centered perfectly as well. Instead of just redoing that alignment, we're just going to delete these other ones, click and drag to grab everything, hold Alt or Option, and just do that another time, putting 16 space in between all of them. Then we can just delete this for now. Then let's grab this square, holding Option or Alt, drag it down into this rectangle. What kind of spacing we got here? And on this one, let's scale it back down to 32 by 32. And then we're going to put 24 on the left-hand side. And here we're breaking that guideline again. We're just going to do 12 on the top and the bottom. Next to that, let's put some text. And here we'll go with 16. And then on this font, I'm going to bold, just so we can get some separation between the username and the text. And then let's add a button over here on the right. And we're going to put this 8 from the right side We're going to make it so that it has 8 on the top and the bottom. And we're going to add some button text. And in all caps, I'm just going to type in view. And it's bold right now. Let's bump it down to medium. And for the width of our rectangle, I'm going to go with 86. Then grab that and the text and horizontally and vertically center them together. So we have a nice button. So we got the profile picture, our text, and then our button here. So we're going to move on down to our videos. Here, these are going to be pretty simple. I think all we need here is an overlay that says live, the view counter, and then let's add some spacing in between each one of these and add some more information like the title of the stream, what they're streaming, etc. So just for now, I'm just going to delete this other rectangle. And we're going to drag one out here in the corner. And let's grab that view text for now. And we're going to change that to live in all caps. You can also just click the capital T's down here to make that uppercase. And on this one, we're going to bump this down to 12 and 16 for the line height. Then I'm going to grab that in the rectangle and center them together. And then I'm going to group it with Command G or Control G. And then we're going to check on the padding. That's just going to speed this up a little bit. So let's go 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. And then on the left and the right, let's go with 8. For placement on this, we're going to go with a little asymmetry. We're going to go 24 on the left and then bump that up a little bit to 16 there from the top. Holding Alt, let's create a duplicate of this. And we're going to put 8 spacing in between each. And this is going to have our view counter. So I'm just going to change this text to like 1,983. Also, let's bump that down to a regular weight. And then let's grab an eyeball icon. And this time I'm going to grab that from Google Material. And I'm actually going to drag that straight into that grouping. So we have that in there. So let's scale this thing down to 12 in size and put it over here on the left. And let's put 4 spacing in between this and the text itself. And then just make sure they're centered vertically there together. And then we can adjust this back over so it has 8 from the right hand side of the live. Final thing we need to do is add a user profile. So we'll just go up to the top, grab one of those holding Alt or Option. And on this, we're going to line this right here on this left-hand guideline. And we'll put that 16 below. Since this is not a new section, we wouldn't want like 24. That would just be weird. So we're going to do 16 there. And we're going to make sure this is 40 by 40. So we're good there. And then for the name text, we'll just grab this one right here and just put a name. And on this, let's just bump that down to a medium to make it a little bit more subtle. And maybe 8 spacing in between each one of those. And then hold Alt and create a duplicate. And I'm just going to touch this right to the bottom of this other text. And we'll scale this one down to 12 with a 16 on the line height. And just fill that in. And we need to also change that to regular weight. And again, touching that to the bottom of the heading. Grabbing both of them, we can hit Command G to group them. And then we can center them vertically together with the user profile. And finally, let's have the language here on the right. So I'm going to grab the live, holding Option or Alt to create a duplicate. And I'm going to center that vertically with all of this stuff. And then we're just going to change the text to English. With that selected, I'm also going to remove the uppercase. And then we'll just align that here on our guideline. So that's going to be how we're going to do the layout for each one of these videos. Since we have very little room over here, I'm just going to grab the live and the view counter and one of these boxes for the videos and just copy it down bottom. And we'll make sure there's 24 spacing between that and this grouping right here, which there is, so we're good. So with that, I think we have our wireframe now done. So I'm going to duplicate that, and then we'll call this design, and just move it over a little bit more. And I'm going to turn off our grid and hit Command semicolon to turn off our guidelines as well. And from here, we can finish off our design. So let's go ahead and do that now. First thing I'm going to do here is change all of the typography to realistic typography. Also bumped this English over 32 from this right side edge of the artboard. So just bumped it in just a little bit there. I think it looks a little better. Now let's add some color to this. So we're going to use 3 main swatches of a dark theme. So the darkest one, I'm going to go with 131313. The medium tone, 1E, 1E, 1E. And the lightest tone for things like buttons and maybe even this English tag, 343434. So those are the hex code values. And I'm just going to grab those, go over to my assets panel, and click the plus on colors to add them. And I'm going to make sure they're in order at the bottom from the darkest to the lightest being the 3.4. That way I know just which ones are which. Finally, we're going to need a red color for our live tags. That's pretty standard with live streaming apps. So go ahead and grab a nice red. FF00 4E. And then we'll add that one to our assets panel. All right, first let's grab the artboard itself and fill it with the 131313. And grab the headings as well as the other text that are just on that itself without a card background, and just drag them straight to white. And then before I forget, let's go ahead and grab this tagline below this name and drag that down to 70% opacity. You can also drag this to a lighter gray color. I just like doing the opacity because it's a little bit quicker. Let's grab the background for the English tag and fill it with the 343434 and remove the border. And then we can also change that English to a white text. For the view counters, we're going to do the same thing for now, but we're going to make these a little special later. For now, we're just going to fill them and change both the text and the eye icon to white, and repeat that for the other one. If we were using components, this would be much quicker as it would update them all at once, but we're not, so that works too. And then make sure you remove the border. For the live, let's go ahead and add those as well. Grabbing that background, filling it as red, removing the border, and changing the type to white. Again, if we were using a component, probably would have saved us some time there. For our view button as well, we'll go ahead and remove the border, fill that to our lightest color gray, and fill the text at white. On this second card here for Nick Williamson, I'm going to add one of the live tags, and we're going to align that 24 from the top and 16 from the right, just giving us some variation up here showing what one of these profiles looks like when they're live. And then for the cards, we're going to grab all of them, turn off the border, and fill them with the 1E. And same thing with all of the text as well as all of the icons. We're going to convert those to white. So I'm just holding Shift as I grab all of those. And then also let's go ahead and add the white to our color swatches as well. Then let's grab our navigation and just remove the border and turn the opacity to 0. Then I'm going to grab both of our placeholder rectangles, same thing, remove the border, turn them to 0, and then grab the icons themselves and fill them to white. Then for the trending and the live channels, let's also bump those down to a thin or light. I think light looks pretty good. The bold headings, I'm not really liking with the dark theme. For this notification section here, we're going to fill that to 1E. And then the text to white. And then let's go ahead and remove the border off of that profile icon and off of this section as well. Same thing for the profile here, remove the border for now. And now let's add some images. So I'm just going to go to my assets folder, and then we'll just start dragging in some images. Also went to Unsplash and grabbed a gradient image, and I'm just going to drag that in and actually place that on the first card here. I think that adds some nice color to our dark theme, and it looks pretty cool. Also, let's grab this user profile icon and turn the opacity back onto that. Let's fill that at 1E, 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 and then let's also make this a circle, just to add some color behind that. Then I might also increase the size of this to 48 by 48, just so we have a fairly large circle there. And with that, I'm going to shift this whole thing over to make sure it's 24 from the edge of the artboard. So we're actually moving that in a bit. And then let's also take this icon and move it over 24 from the left side edge as well. And then let's add a little bit of border radius to each one of these elements just to make this look a little less flat. So I'm going to grab all the user profiles and drag them to a circle. And with that, I'm going to double click to make sure I adjust each one of these crops so that the face is more or less in the center, just so it looks a bit better. Because right now all the faces are getting cropped off, and that just looks a little weird. So just making sure I do that for all of the profile icons and adjusting their crops. So now that we got that, let's grab the cards up here at the top. Holding Shift, we'll grab all of them and add a border radius of 32. For the notification section, we're going to go with 16. And for the button, we'll go with 8. So the rule of thumb here is the larger the element, the larger the border radius. That way it doesn't look a little funky with everything having such a large border radius when it's very small. So we've got 32, 16, and 8. On these videos, however, they are the largest kind of rectangle on the screen. I'm only going to set them to 16 just because I want to keep that aspect ratio of the video. If we go with something like 32, it looks a little too round for my liking, so I'm just going to leave it at the 16. Since they are so large, I think it looks nice in this design. Also, let's grab each one of the live tags, and we're going to round those to 8 just to make those look like they fit in. Those harsh corners no longer work, so we'll do that with the viewer count as well. And also, don't forget the English tag. And then from here, I want to add one more thing. So on the view counter, on the background, so we're going to double click to get inside that group and make sure we have that rectangle selected. I don't know why it's pretty common for this to be done, but I like the way it looks. So we're going to do the kind of background blur on this. So we're going to check that on right here by clicking the check mark. And for the blur value, we're going to drag that all the way up to 50. For the lightness value, I'm going to drag that to 0. And for the image opacity, it's a little light, so we'll drag that to somewhere around 60% or so. And then I'm going to right click, copy, and then go down to our other one. Again, if we were using components, this would be a lot easier. We're going to right click, paste appearance to apply the same appearance to it. And with that, I think we have finished off this design. So that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed creating this dark themed live streaming app using the 8-point grid. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you to Milanote for sponsoring this video. If you'd like to check out their product for planning your next creative project, check out the link at the top of the description. Subscribe for more design and Adobe XD related content. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.